Hi, everyone, and welcome to this exclusive masterclass session. And I'm so excited to introduce you to our guest today, Coach Lee Wilson. Oh, just Coach Lee. Coach Lee is a relationship expert and breakup coach who works with individuals to become their most attractive selves in order to bring success in relationships and to reunite with the one they love after a breakup or marital separation. Coach Lee's website is myexbackcoach.com. Coach Lee, thank you so much for being here. I'm so happy to have you here.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yes. So today we'll talk about relationship and anxiety. And we all know how much anxiety people have when it comes to separation and going through just separation and think of bringing their ex back. So this term of relationship and anxiety, I assume that's a huge part of your coaching practice of the issue that your clients are having, right?
Right. As a matter of fact, I've been in the studio for the past week working on a new course on anxiety that I'm going to be, uh, putting out for my clients because so many of them have been struggling with anxiety. And so not only do they need information on getting their ex back, they need information on coping with anxiety. And that's for people who aren't even trying to get an ex back or aren't having relationship trouble. There's just so much anxiety in the world today. And most people can get a lot of help if they can just learn some things about how to reframe their thoughts and how to get to the heart of what's going on and to learn some techniques that will actually lower anxiety, because really it's about a few different chemicals in your body and learning how to give help to your body in, first of all, stopping so much production of a chemical called cortisol, which is the stress hormone, and adrenaline. Those are the two that we're up against, and we're going to try to soften. What we want to increase is dopamine and oxytocin, and there's some other things you can do that will alter serotonin slightly. And a lot of it will help you do both. You will decrease cortisol and adrenaline, and you'll increase dopamine, oxytocin, and you'll feel better. And it's amazing how quickly these things happen within seconds, a lot of these techniques. And when people learn them, they can really get a hold of their anxiety, whereas before it was paralyzing and just really impacted their lives negatively. So I've been working on that course now for about a week, and it will be on my website, myexbackcoach.com, in the next few days.
Wow, that is awesome. So in that course, you teach the specific techniques that people can do on themselves and they work quickly to basically stop that feeling of anxiety that is being triggered in the moment, right?
Right, right, absolutely.
And also you probably teach them what to do to overcome that anxiety in the long term as well, right?
right, right. It can help basically stop anxiety before it starts. You learn both how to stop it once you have it and how to prevent it from being a part of your life that you can't deal with in the future.
Right, right. Perfect. So it will be for everyone's listening. It will be soon, probably next week, on myexbackcoach.com, on
That's right.
Coach Lee's website. So you have, uh, and so in when it comes to relationship and anxiety, and the word emergency would often
Mm.
uh, come up. It comes up because the anxiety is being felt when there is something urgent that needs to happen. Oh my God, I'm gonna lose my partner. I'm gonna lose my relationship. So emergency is a big word when it comes to relationship and anxiety. And on your website, you have emergency breakup kit and emergency marriage kit. Can you talk a little bit what those things are and how can people benefit from those?
Well, the both of them, the emergency kits, there's the emergency breakup kit and the emergency marriage kit. And basically, right after a breakup, most people do the exact wrong things. They actually end up pushing this person further away, and that can be a spouse as well. And so we've got to hopefully get them to stop the negatives. That's the first thing. And then we can start the positives. So it really right away tells them, stop this, and we stop the bleeding. And then it starts telling them, okay, now that you've stopped that, we can start working on the things you need to do to reattract your ex. Because what most people don't realize is that the reason that this person's broken up with them or wants a separation is that attraction has fallen. And most people think that they are still dealing with the same level of attraction. That's why most people think, if I can just talk to them, if I can just get them face to face, we can figure this out and I can get them back. I can talk them into it. If I can just talk to them. That's what most people think. The problem is that attraction's low. So your influence with them is lower than you remember it being, because early on, when the fireworks of limerence are there, or when the relationship's strong and doing well, yes, you have a lot of influence on them. But once attraction has fallen, and I don't just mean physical attraction, I mean emotional attraction. Once that's fallen, you cannot rely on that. And people don't realize that that's what they think they can rely on. And so that's why it's so ineffective to try and talk to this person, talk them into it, or being around them to try to get them back. And so that's the first thing usually I have to get people to stop doing, is to back off, give this person the breakup, because they have to learn they don't want it. And of course, it gets a lot more complicated than that, but that's the first thing they have to do. And then the other things I walk them through on getting this person back. And so it's been quite effective. I get emails every day from people who have gotten their ex back with one of the kits, the emergency breakup kit or the emergency marriage kit, which is obviously for married people. And I'm actually boosting those. I'm adding a lot more content to those as well while I've been here in the studio the last couple of weeks.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, when it comes to relationship anxiety and getting your ex back, can you talk a little bit how important is to reconnect with your own self-love and your bringing your own self-esteem high and having this feeling of worthiness, what that I'm worthy of happy relationships, I'm worthy of happiness. How important of that topic of self-love when it comes to getting your ex back? Can you talk a little bit on that, please?
Sure. So when someone has been broken up with, the person who did the dumping automatically assumes a higher role in the hierarchy of attraction, just because they're the ones who did the dumping. And so a lot of what the person who has been dumped actually feels is that rejection, and that they are not as attractive as the person who dumped them. And so a lot of times people will assume that role, that they are not attractive, or at least not as attractive as their ex. And so they start to beg and plead. In other words, instead of saying, I have this to offer, and trusting that, what they do is they make their ex their dictator. Because when we're around a dictator, the dictator has all the power. So let's say a dictator took over the government. Well, that person could take your house, take your income, your property. There's nothing you could do about it except beg, because you have no other recourse. You don't have a military. You don't have government power, big government power. All you have is you can try to beg and hope they have mercy on you. Terrible position to be in, which is why we should all fight for freedom. But if you make your ex your dictator, that's basically what you're doing. You're saying, I have nothing, you have all the power, so all I can do is beg and hope you'll have mercy on me. So making your ex your dictator is very unattractive, because you actually assume the role of being the less attractive one, the one with no power, the one with nothing to offer. So when you believe in yourself and you know that that's not true, when you know that you have a lot to offer and that you're attractive and that your ex would be best served and would be getting something wonderful to be with you, then you don't beg, you don't plead. and you actually end up doing what an attractive person would do, which is, interestingly enough, attractive. When you do the things that an attractive person would do, you actually behave in an attractive way. So, for example, sometimes I'll have to tell people, so if it's a guy, I'll say, what if you were Justin Timberlake and Justin Timberlake had been dumped? What do you think he would do? And they're like, well, I'm not Justin Timberlake. I get that you're not Justin Timberlake, but what would he do? Would he be freaking out and acting like he has no options? Would he think of himself as less attractive? Would he beg and plead? No. He would probably think, she's going to get it pretty quick that I'm where it's at and she wants me. That's probably what he's going to think. That's what an attractive man would think, who's confident in his own attraction. And so a lot of guys, though, they understand that that's what they should be doing, but they're not there. And it could be just because of the breakup, but it could also be because they have negative experiences in relationships with women and they doubt themselves. And so I'll tell them, not fake it until you make it, but face it until you make it, which basically means you're going to behave as though you believe you can be what you want to be. And so that means sometimes channeling someone like Justin Timberlake or James Bond, somebody who's confident and attractive and does not have to put themselves in the place of a serf begging a dictator for mercy. Same thing, with a woman. She'll be in tears. Her life is over. This guy's broken up with her. And I'll ask her, name a woman who you think is attractive and has guys lining up at her door to date her. And whoever that woman is, I'll say, what would she do in this situation? And, women tend to be able to channel that better than men, just generally speaking. I don't mean to categorize, but usually they seem to get that a little bit, mostly because they're kind of taught from a younger age that it's good to let the man pursue you some. And while I believe and have seen evidence that good relationships come from two people who are pursuing each other, when there's been a breakup, the person who has been broken up with should not pursue. That's not an attractive position in that case. And so working with men or women, the key here is you must behave as an attractive person in this situation. And when you're desperate, that's really difficult to do. And so the emergency breakup kit and the emergency marriage kit really help them to have a guide. Because when you're desperate and hurt like that, it's very difficult to know, well, how would I act if I was attractive? Because you have so much trauma and emotional injury, and you're trying to heal from this. You're trying to salvage the relationship. There's so much going on that it's difficult to try to put yourself in the place of someone who's attractive, because empathy, when you're so desperate for something good for yourself, it's very difficult to have empathy and be able to say, I'm going to act like this person who's attractive. So the kit really walks them through that and shows them how not to push someone away. And the key, like I've said several times, you have to be attractive to reattract. It's that simple. And begging, pleading, doing things that suggest the other person is more attractive than you is not attractive. So that's one of the starting points for really working on self-love, believing in your own worthiness and attractiveness. And ironically, that will make you more attractive on its own.
This is great stuff. And so recently I read a book by Todd Herman. It's called The Alter Ego Effect. And in that book, he describes how you can create the alter ego that has any quality that you want to have, and just do like a ritual and basically reconnecting, becoming that alter ego. And that's exactly what I hear from you saying. Like, imagine that you are, let's say, Justin Timberlake, and imagine, just feel that, okay, now Justin Timberlake is me, I am Justin Timberlake, and have all of these qualities, and it's just, it's amazing how this works, and how, if it's really felt on a deep level, how it can change the way we act, the way we even think and feel. So that's some powerful stuff. So I want to ask this question that I know that comes up a lot. So sometimes when a breakup happens in a relationship, or it feels like a breakup, and when it happens for the first time in the relationship, the question that often comes up, is this like a real breakup, or is it some kind of a test that my partner is having me to go through? So how do people understand or figure out, is this a real breakup? Should I be worrying, or is this just a game that my partner is playing with me?
First of all, if it's truly a game, then I would tell you to do your best to move on from this person. And it will not be easy at the beginning, because you're dealing with loss, you're dealing with feeling this rejection, and you're wanting to get that back. And that's a big driving factor, those two things. You also care about this person, and that obviously is difficult as well. So you have those three things. But if this person is treating you like you are an experiment, or that they are going to manipulate you to change your behavior or change who you are, you don't want to be around them. You don't want this person in your life, especially not in a relationship, a loving, committed relationship, or at least trying to have a loving, committed relationship with this person. However, all breakups are a test to some degree, even if the person who dumps you does not realize they're testing you. What will happen is, a month, 2 months, 3 months down the road, as this person experiences life without you and actually experiences the breakup, which is, it's so important to give them the breakup so that they can experience it. But your behavior during that time, which ideally would be to leave them alone and let them experience the breakup, is a test that when they look back on, they don't even know that they've given you, but that you want to pass. Because if you keep yourself in their life, if you beg, plead, pursue, and try to somehow save the relationship when they don't want it, what you're doing is, first of all, you're giving them a free pass, because every day they know they could have you back if they wanted you. So they don't have to experience the loss or the fear of loss. You do, because they have the power. They're your dictator. You would be the one who is pursuing, which means they don't have to pursue. They can just sit back and wait on you. And so if you do those things, you're failing the test, because in a few months, when they recover from the breakup, because usually they break up with you, they have to recover a little bit too. And it goes in stages. I actually have a video on YouTube called Stages Your Ex Goes Through During No Contact. And it talks about the stages they go through. And the first stage after they break up with you is usually relief. And the reason is because unless they are emotionally and mentally sick, they didn't want to hurt you. They didn't wake up and say, I think I'm going to crush her or crush him today. They probably dreaded it. It was very awkward. They had to see you hurt. They knew you didn't want it. And so they get that over with, where they kind of get over that hump. They have to tell you this terrible news. They hurt you. They pull back from you and watch you hurt. And now they're kind of relieved, like, okay, I got that over with. And they think that they're going to kind of go off into the sunset. If you keep pursuing after that's happened, then they do kind of go off into the sunset, because they feel like they haven't gotten what they think they wanted yet, because you're still there. But when they actually don't have you, and they have to see that and see, okay, this is life without her, this is life without him, that's when they can actually experience the breakup for real. And as they look back on you, do they want you back? If you stayed away and gave them the breakup, then you passed the test that they didn't even know they were giving you. And so, yes, a breakup is a test, but if it's done on purpose as a test, then you are experiencing someone who is probably a sociopath and you need to get away from them, because if you empathize with another human being, you would not put them through tests that emotionally injure them. When you love somebody, that's not what you do. So if they're really wanting to test you, get away. Take it as a blessing, even though it's going to hurt and it's going to be difficult. Try to see that it's best for you.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I'm just curious, statistically speaking, the most of your clients, are they men or women?
You know, it's almost down the middle. It's something like 47% are women and 53% are men. So it's almost half and half.
Okay, so even a little advantage, like even a little bit more men, because I've heard some theory that whenever like it's relationship problem, usually women, and it's just a theory that I heard, but usually women are more open to come and seek for help with a professional, with a coach, because usually men are more uh, trying to figure out everything by themselves, are not so open to just share and be transparent on what the issue in their personal life is. So what you see in practice, that it's not really the case, right?
Well, let me clarify that a little bit. My YouTube audience is 47% women, 53% male. But when I was doing coaching calls, I'm taking a break from those for a bit. The majority was probably female as far as the actual calls that were set up. Probably about 2 to 1 women to men. But the YouTube audience is more, slightly more male, but it's still, almost down the middle. But I think that that's generally correct, that women understand sometimes that they need a voice of experience, and I have 20 years of experience. And I know a lot of women also told me they wanted to actually speak to a man since they were dealing with a breakup with a man, man who had broken up with them, maybe because there might be some differences in how men and women see things. And so rather than seek out coaching from a woman, they thought, I'm going to get a male perspective, or they did both. They talked to a female coach and a male coach and kind of tried to see what different strategies might have been suggested between the two. But it's not too far off with my YouTube channel, but there were more women who were seeking coaching than men when I was doing coaching calls. But right now, my coaching is only done for YouTube videos. So again, 47% female, 53% male.
Interesting, interesting. And so another question that I have, for someone who's going through breakups often in the same relationships, like let's say every 7, 9 months they break up, they spend like a month or two separately, and then they re-engage and continue their relationship together. So as the time goes, those breakups like a constant thing that keeps happening, and at some point person just would ask themselves, okay, where do I make a decision whether I keep continuing this cycle of getting together and being separated, getting together and going through a breakup, when it's time for me to understand that it's not really working, it's not really working out with us, and I should just move on. I have feelings for my partner, but it just seems that it's not working out. So what is your take on that?
Well, I have an article on myexpatcoach.com on what happens when people are on again, off again. And it's important that we don't just put this type of relationship into its own category, because surveys and polls on married couples show that most of them think that if they were dating, that they would have broken up several times, but that since they're married, they've stuck it out. They've been more likely to work on it, work through it, seek professional help, or take a break and say, we're not going to argue or talk about this issue for a while and come back to it. Whereas if you're just dating, then the commitment level is not quite as high because there's not as many negatives to separating. And so a lot of times people just give up on it. But I found that the people who separate or break up and find their way back to each other over and over again, interestingly enough, if they can get their issues sorted out, have a lot of long-term staying power because they keep finding their way back. They go out into the world, maybe they go out and date other people, go out and live single, but they realize this person is missing from life. And so while it's painful and frustrating, people will even say, well, I don't want an on again, off again relationship. Well, nobody does. But I remember one client who they were broken up and kind of still talking. They just it lingered. It would be weeks, but then they would talk. And then just kind of an odd situation. And she reached out to him on the day of their anniversary when they had met. And she said, happy anniversary. And he kind of laughed and she laughed. They put LOL, in the text. And they ended up getting back together and got married. And they kind of talked about that, how they would break up and maybe they would date other people here and there, but did not ever feel that they were truly apart, as far as they kind of both felt like we will get back together. We're kind of stuck together somehow, and that this is temporary. And that's not for everybody. But I will say to people who maybe are wondering if this relationship is quote meant to be, or if they should be in it because they just keep breaking up and getting back together. It's a struggle that if you can get through it, it's usually worth it, unless it's just extreme. If we're talking about, 3 or 4 breakups over the case of like 5-10 years, that's probably a pretty decent situation because you keep finding your way back to each other. But if we're talking about like a breakup every 2-3 months, that's probably you're dealing with someone who's got some emotional issues that's causing that. But just know that just because you two break up or have fallouts and don't speak for a while but then get back together, that doesn't mean that you're not great for each other. It doesn't mean that you don't care about each other. And the ones that keep finding their way back to each other, that just can't stay away, can't truly live life without the other person, and eventually just keep finding their way back to each other's arms, they usually have a lot of staying power and can be long term if they can just get some of those issues sorted out.
Wonderful, wonderful. And also, when breakup happens, and let's say a breakup happens, and let's say John and Mary, breakup happened, and Mary sees John, who broke up with her, pretty quickly started a new relationship already, a new relationship, and Mary wants to get John back. How does she realize, okay, if she still has feelings for John, but how does she make a decision like, okay, is this like a temporary thing that he's doing maybe to make her feel even worse, or maybe it's something serious and she just need to move on with her life? Or should she start a new relationship just to try how it feels in the meantime as she's looking at John, what's happening with him? So there's lots of anxieties that come up in a situation like this, when there's not only breakup happened, but the person started a new relationship already. So what is your advice, generally speaking, in a situation like that? How to do, like, is it time to move on? When it's time to move on?
Well, first of all, if you are freshly out of a relationship, I would say that you should take some time before you start dating again. Usually, I would say at least 3 months. And, people don't always like to hear that, but you need to have that time alone so that you're not becoming addicted to having someone. And you also, if you do want to get this other person back, the last thing you want to do is hurt somebody else. And so if you're just kind of dating for fun and someone else is looking for a serious relationship, and then this other person comes back to you and wants to get back together, and so you leave the new person, I mean, it can get pretty complicated. So if you do want your ex back, I usually tell people, pick a time. Usually we're talking at least minimum of 3 months. And once that mark has been passed, if you think I want to date other people, I haven't heard from this person, then proceed slowly. But if you jump right back into it, first of all, you're not going to give yourself time to emotionally heal. It's not healthy. And you're not going to truly experience being without a relationship in general. And you don't want to just turn into somebody, a relationship junkie. So taking that time, reuniting with friends and family, uh, looking and focusing on yourself, very important. So I don't believe at all in, some people, some coaches will say, I heard one coach say the best way to get over someone is to get under someone else. It's a cute little jingle, but emotionally speaking, it's not healthy. And you will kind of become either a relationship junkie or basically sort of a true player who, is not in a committed relationship. It's just jumping from someone to another person. And people don't really want that if they know what it means. So I usually just tell people, take a break, hang out with friends, go have fun, travel, do what you can to get in touch with yourself again, and to leave the door open for this other person if you do want them back. So I don't advocate for people to jump in a relationship quickly. Um, if you're trying to play the jealousy game, usually that just blows up in your face. I know in Hollywood and the movies, it just works like a charm. But usually what the other person will think is, they'll think, you mean they could jump in a relationship with somebody else that quickly? Then they must not have loved me. And you may be thinking, why does it matter if they broke up with you? Well, it's complicated, but if this person is starting to think they made a mistake, they're starting to miss you, it can be unattractive for them to see you with somebody else and to think, oh, I wasn't that important to them if they could just jump in with somebody else. It can also, make you look kind of shallow, kind of immature, and it can make the person give up, where they think, oh, well, there was somebody else. Some people don't do well with that, and they'll just say, well, I might as well just move on myself because they've already moved on, and I don't want to have to fight and compete with somebody else. So you've got at least 3 scenarios where it's going to hurt you and blow up in your face and keep you from getting back together with this person. Technically, that means that the fourth option is that it could make them jealous and they could pursue you, but there's a lot of times still lingering resentment and anger that can be associated with it. So that's why, another reason that I say, get in touch with yourself, hang out with friends, reevaluate what you want in life, take a break from relationships in general, at least 3 months. For some people, it's going to be longer, but at least take that break is what I would say, as somebody who's been in relationship coaching for 20 years, and I've seen a lot of situations, and that's what I would suggest to people.
Wonderful. Coach Lee, thank you so much for these wonderful pieces of wisdom and great insights that you shared with us, with your knowledge, with your experience. So now, for people who want to learn and follow you and learn from you, obviously you have a crazy popular YouTube channel, and so you are also pretty active on Facebook, right? On Instagram, and there's your website, myexbackcoach.com. So for people who are really interested in your new anxiety product that you're working course that you're working on right now, they will hear once it's done on your social media, right?
Right. And they can also go to myexbackcoach.com. And if you just sign up for the newsletter, the email list, I'll be emailing out when it's ready. So that's just myexbackcoach.com. And you can sign up for the email list, and I'll send you an email whenever it's ready, which hopefully will be just in the next few days. And I know that a lot of people are really anxious for me to get the course out, which is kind of a little joke there. But I did do a poll on my YouTube community, um, I guess social media, on YouTube, and there were a little over 2,500 people to take the poll in like 2 days, and 93% of them were saying that they wanted that course. So I know that there's a lot of demand for it. A lot of people are emailing asking me if it's ready yet. So a lot of people are struggling with it, especially with the way that the year 2020 has gone. There's a lot of anxiety in the world. So I felt like this was probably the way that I could help the most. And so it'll be ready in the next few days. I've been pulling some long days trying to get it out as quickly as I could the last few days and the last week. It's been about a year in the making as far as research and development, just getting it all down and talking to different sources, making sure I had some things right, and going over some things that worked, and getting some additional ways that we could achieve the same thing in case it didn't work with everyone. So it's going to be pretty detailed, and but it will also be guided, because people who are dealing with anxiety, the last thing they want is for me to just say a whole bunch of stuff and then walk away. They'd like to, a lot of people want to know, okay, do this and then do this and then do this, rather than just me give a whole bunch of material. So it's thought out very well. I'm really excited about it. And if you go to myexpatcoach.com and just join my email newsletter, you'll get an email when it's ready.
That's amazing. I'm so happy that this course will be ready in a couple of days, because not only for anxiety in general, for people who are struggling with anxiety, that'll be a great solution for them. But for those, especially on this summit, for those who are experiencing a relationship anxiety, who's a
Right.
better person to learn from as like you, because you have like 20 years of experience of relationship coaching, and I'm sure it's going to be amazing. Coach Lee,
Thank you.
again, thank you so much for your time, for sharing your knowledge and experience. I truly appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.